never imagined the worst day of my life would begin with a simple phone call from my mother. She said the entire family needed to gather at her house because she had something important to announce. The moment I walked into the living room, I could already feel that something was different. My older brother was sitting proudly beside her with a confident smile, while my sister kept glancing at me with a look I couldn't understand. A family lawyer arrived carrying a thick brown envelope and placed it on the table. My heart started pounding. My mother slowly stood up, looked directly into my eyes, and said, "After everything that's happened, I've decided who truly deserves everything I've worked for." The room became completely silent. The lawyer opened the envelope and began reading her will. One by one, every valuable possession was assigned. The family house went to my brother. The vacation cabin, savings accounts, and investments also went to him. My sister received expensive jewelry and cash. Then the lawyer paused, looked at me, and quietly said, "To my younger son, I leave only your grandfather's old wristwatch." My brother couldn't stop laughing. My sister smirked. Even a few relatives shook their heads with pity. My mother folded her arms and coldly said, "Maybe now you'll understand your place in this family." I quietly picked up the old watch, thanked everyone without a single complaint, and walked toward the front door. Completely unaware that this forgotten watch was about to change my life forever. I walked out of my mother's house holding nothing but my grandfather's old wristwatch. Behind me, I could still hear my brother laughing and celebrating as if he had already won everything. Every step toward my car felt heavier than the last. It wasn't the money that hurt. It was the realization that, after years of helping my family, I had never truly been valued. I sat behind the steering wheel, staring at the worn-out watch in my hand. Its leather strap was cracked, the glass was scratched, and it barely worked anymore. To everyone else, it looked like a worthless piece of junk. I couldn't understand why my mother had even bothered leaving it to me. Just as I was about to drive away, someone knocked on my car window. It was my Uncle David. He looked around to make sure no one else was watching before quietly leaning toward me. In a calm voice, he said, "Don't throw that watch away. Your grandfather loved you more than you know. He always told me that one day this watch would find the right owner." Before I could ask what he meant, he simply patted my shoulder and walked back toward the house. His words stayed with me for days. Life slowly returned to normal, but the pain never left. I buried myself in work, trying to forget everything that had happened. Yet every night, before going to bed, I would place my grandfather's old watch on the bedside table and wonder, why had he wanted me to have this watch instead of anything else? Little did I know, the answer was hidden where no one had ever thought to look. Nearly 3 weeks passed, but my uncle's words refused to leave my mind. Every night, I found myself staring at my grandfather's old wristwatch, wondering what made it so special. One rainy evening, while cleaning the dust from its scratched glass, I noticed something unusual. The back of the watch felt slightly thicker than it should have. At first, I thought it was just because the watch was old, but curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a small screwdriver from my toolbox and carefully loosened the tiny screws holding the back cover in place. As the cover came off, my hands froze. Hidden inside was a tiny piece of folded paper, sealed so perfectly that no one would ever notice it unless they opened the watch. My heart started pounding as I unfolded the fragile note. It was written in my grandfather's familiar handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means honesty cost you everything. But don't lose faith. Go to Harrison Bank. Ask for safety deposit box number 47. The key isn't in the bank. It's hidden beneath the leather strap of this watch. Trust no one until you reach the box. Everything I truly wanted to leave you is waiting there." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. With trembling fingers, I removed the old leather strap and felt something small hidden underneath. A tiny brass key slipped into my palm. Suddenly, my grandfather's old watch no longer looked worthless. It looked like the beginning of a secret that could change my life forever. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Harrison Bank, unaware that the truth waiting inside safety deposit box number 47 would rewrite everything I thought I knew about my family. The next morning, I barely slept. As soon as Harrison Bank opened, I walked through its glass doors with the old watch, the hidden key, and my grandfather's note safely tucked inside my jacket. I approached the front desk and quietly asked to speak with the bank manager. At first, he looked confused when I mentioned safety deposit box number 47, but after checking a few old records on his computer, his expression suddenly changed. He looked up at me and said, "Please come with me, Mr. Carter." He led me through a series of secure doors until we reached a large steel vault lined with hundreds of deposit boxes. He stopped in front of one that looked untouched by for years. With shaking hands, I inserted the tiny brass key hidden beneath my grandfather's watch strap. The lock clicked open. Inside was a dusty wooden box, several sealed envelopes, a thick folder of legal documents, and a handwritten letter with my name on it. I carefully opened the letter first. "My dear grandson," it began. "If you're reading this, then the family has already shown you who they truly are. I spent years watching how everyone treated each other whenever money was involved. I knew greed would eventually reveal itself. That's why I hid my real legacy where only the person with honesty, patience, and a good heart would ever find it." My hands trembled as I opened the legal folder. Property deeds, investment certificates, company shares, and trust documents filled the box. The total value was over $8 million. I sat there in complete silence, unable to believe what I was seeing. The old watch my family had laughed at wasn't a worthless gift at all. It was the key to my grandfather's greatest secret. And at that moment, I realized the real inheritance had never been written into my mother's will. It had been waiting for me all along. I sat alone in the bank's private room, staring at the documents spread across the table. My hands were still shaking as I reached for the second letter my grandfather had left behind. Unlike the first one, this letter wasn't about money. It was about the truth. I unfolded the yellowed paper and began to read. "My dear grandson, if you found this letter, then you've also discovered the inheritance I protected for you. But before you decide what to do with it, there's something you deserve to know. Years ago, I watched this family change whenever money entered the conversation. Your mother, your brother, and even your sister slowly began measuring love by wealth. You were the only one who never asked me for anything. You visited me when I was sick, helped me without expecting a reward, and treated me with kindness when everyone else was busy chasing success. That is why I chose you. Not because you were perfect, but because your heart never changed." Tears filled my eyes as I finished reading. For the first time in years, I felt understood. My grandfather had seen every sacrifice I had made, even when no one else noticed. Then I opened the final envelope. It contained one last instruction. "Do not tell your family immediately. Let life reveal their true intentions first. The way they treat you after the will is read will tell you everything you need to know." A few days later, the lawyer managing my grandfather's trust called me with unexpected news. The transfer of the inheritance was complete. But there was one condition I hadn't expected. "By law," the lawyer said, "your family will be officially notified within the next 48 hours." I looked out the window, took a deep breath, and realized everything was about to change. Soon the same people who had laughed at me would discover the truth, and I couldn't imagine how far they would go once they learned who had inherited the real fortune. 2 days later, I was sitting in my office when my phone began ringing nonstop. The first call was from my sister. I ignored it. Then my brother called 3 times in a row. Minutes later, my mother's name appeared on the screen. I knew exactly why they were calling. The lawyer had officially informed them about my grandfather's secret trust. That evening, there was a knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, my mother, my brother, and my sister were standing there together. Just a week earlier, they had laughed as I walked away with nothing but an old watch. Now their faces looked completely different. My mother's eyes were filled with tears as she stepped forward. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I made a terrible mistake. I should never have treated you that way." Before I could answer, my brother interrupted. "Come on. We're family. Grandpa's money belongs to all of us. Let's divide it equally and forget everything that happened." I looked at him in disbelief. Not once had he apologized for mocking me. Not once had he admitted he was wrong. The only thing that had changed was the amount of money attached to my name. I invited them inside and listened quietly as they made excuse after excuse. My sister claimed she had never agreed with Mom's decision. My brother insisted the past didn't matter anymore. My mother cried, begging me to keep the family together. After a long silence, I finally spoke. If I had walked away from that house with nothing but this old watch, and Grandpa had never left me that trust, would any of you be standing here today? The room fell completely silent. No one answered, because deep down, they all knew the truth. The silence in my apartment felt heavier than anything I'd ever experienced. My mother lowered her eyes, unable to answer my question. My brother crossed his arms, avoiding my gaze, while my sister quietly wiped away her tears. Their silence told me everything I needed to know. They hadn't come because they missed me. They had come because they had discovered I was worth millions. I took a deep breath and looked at each of them. Grandpa didn't leave me this inheritance because I was lucky, I said calmly. He left it to me because he trusted my character. If I simply hand over the money now, I'd be ignoring the very lesson he wanted to teach. My brother suddenly stood up, his face turning red with anger. "So you're just going to keep it all for yourself?" he shouted, "after everything this family has done for you?" I couldn't help but smile sadly. "Everything this family has done for me?" I repeated. "Last week you laughed while Mom told me I deserved nothing. None of you defended me, none of you even walked me to the door." The room became silent again. Then I looked directly at my brother and made him an offer. "I'm not giving you millions," I said, "but if you truly want a better life, I'll give you a job in the company I'm about to build. You'll earn a fair salary, and if you work hard, you'll have the same opportunities as everyone else." For a brief moment, I thought he might accept. Instead, he slammed his fist on the table. "I don't want a job," he yelled. "I want what's mine." I slowly shook my head. "That's the difference between us," I replied quietly. "I was willing to work for my future, while you were only willing to wait for someone else's." Without another word, my brother stormed out of the apartment, followed by my sister. My mother stood there for a moment, tears streaming down her face before whispering, "I hope one day you'll forgive me." As the door closed behind them, I looked down at my grandfather's old watch and realized that the greatest inheritance he had given me wasn't the fortune. It was the wisdom to know who truly belonged in my life. Months passed, and life slowly began to change in ways I never expected. Instead of spending my grandfather's fortune on luxury cars or a mansion, I invested it wisely. I started a small construction company with one simple promise: everyone who worked hard would be treated with respect. The business grew faster than I imagined. Within 2 years, we had hundreds of employees, opened offices in 3 states, and created scholarship programs in my grandfather's name for students who couldn't afford college. One crisp autumn morning, I was invited to speak at the opening of our newest office. As I stepped outside after the ceremony, I noticed a familiar figure standing quietly across the street. It was my mother. She looked older than I remembered. The confidence she once carried had been replaced by regret. Slowly, she walked toward me, tears already filling her eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said softly. "Every day I think about the way I treated you. I chose favorites, and I almost lost my son because of it." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my grandfather's old wristwatch. "I used to think this watch was the smallest gift anyone could leave behind," I said. "But it turned out to be the greatest gift of my life. Not because it led me to money, but because it showed me who truly believed in me." My mother broke down in tears, and for the first time in years, I hugged her. I couldn't erase the past, but I refused to let it poison my future. As I walked away, I looked once more at the old watch on my wrist. My grandfather had left me wealth, but more importantly, he had left me wisdom. I finally understood his greatest lesson. Money can buy comfort, but it can never buy love, loyalty, or character. Those are earned by the choices we make every single day. And in the end, the real inheritance was never the millions hidden inside a bank vault. It was becoming the kind of man my grandfather always believed I could be.